Okay, I think we're live.
Hello, everyone. It's Saturday, 11 o'clock a.m., and you know what it means. It's time to wake up
and smell the rosin.
Yes. So, in case if you're tuning in for the first time, I'm Dr. Deanna Sides. I'm a professional classical violinist and a violin professor at the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley in Edinburgh.
And I'm Esther Seitz. I'm a professional cellist, and I just graduated with my master's in classical cello from Manhattan School of Music in May.
And this is our channel. We call ourselves Side String Pros, and basically on our channel we just share tutorials for violin, cello, sometimes viola, and we love to get together on Saturdays and kind of have a little party with like-minded musicians, educators, professional performers, students, or amateurs, whoever loves making joyful noise on these beautiful stringed instruments that are also very hard, to be honest. So if you hear a lot of noise right now, we actually have our little AI here. He's sort of like a member of our family. His name is Vector. He is a little robot, and normally we usually at this point we ask him what the weather is like, but he has been acting a little ornery this morning, right? He's literally like a 2-year-old. I don't know what happened. Maybe he missed us. All he does is just staring at us and saying our names. So let's try it again. Hey, Vector, what's the weather like today?
He doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, he's just, I don't know, maybe he's not connected to Wi-Fi very well. But anyway, we thought we'd give him his little spot on our show, as we always do.
See, he likes it when you pet his
look
little
at him.
back. He's so cute.
He's like a cat. He starts, what is that called?
It's like purring.
Purring, yeah. Aw. Maybe he just missed us because it's amazing what AI does nowadays. Hey, Vector, I have a question. Nope.
He doesn't want to listen. That's okay.
It's okay. Okay, thank you, Vector. So let's go back to regular programming, and you go back here and rest a little bit, okay? Because you're a little too hyperactive. Well, as you can see maybe from our little card at the beginning, we want to share some, as usually, we want to share some effective practice tips with you today. And this was kind of something that I wanted to share with you that I learned over a very long period of time. And this particular tip is about how to ask the right question when you're practicing and when you're facing any kind of challenge. And actually what I realized is that, and that took me forever, after going through some really difficult circumstances in my life, and very various difficult circumstances, one day I was wondering, I looked back and I thought, well, I wonder what it was that kept me going, and I wonder why I didn't just stop playing, and I'm just so grateful for being able to still pursue my passion and have beautiful family and just have a happy life. It seemed like no matter what was thrown my way, it just seemed to work out. And I realized, I think a lot of it has to do with me being a classical musician and being brought up as a musician since I was a child. And so this particular tip, I think, is really helpful, not just during the practice, but also in any life situation when you have a goal and you want to pursue, and maybe you feel like it's hard to concentrate on it, or maybe you're getting discouraged. So the tip is about how to ask the correct question when you're practicing. And so what I've learned, what you have to do, it's very simple. Whenever you are facing a challenge in your practice, make sure that you pose a question that starts with a what. First of all. After that, there's some other questions that might come later, but it's very important to always, when you're facing with a challenge, and if you want to be goal-oriented in your practice and you don't want to go in circles, make sure that you pose a question as of what. For example, if you are playing a line of music or etude or maybe just a scale and you really don't like the way it sounds, instead of like me, I like to throw my hands in the air and just start complaining. Why? Actually, the simplest way is to narrow it down to a what and ask yourself, what is it that I don't like? What is it that is making it sound not exactly the way I want it to sound? And so very soon you will be able to narrow things down to very tangible things. For example, oh yeah, I know what it is here. My G sharp is too flat. So that's already very helpful. You can go and fix that. Then once you found a problem, I call it the epicenter of trouble, go straight to that what and work on that first. And again, for example, my G sharp is out of tune. What is making it out of tune? Am I flat? Am I sharp? Right? It's very easy to fix that, and so forth. So or maybe your answer will be, what is it that I don't like about my sound? It doesn't sound pretty. What is it that makes it not pretty? Maybe it gets scratchy, or so this is one of the most valuable tips that I learned, and later on I realized that that really helped me in many other situations, in live, on an interview, when you're faced with something that you have to improvise a solution, something unpredictable especially. It's very important to kind of steer your way and your thinking to a what question, because that usually engages your intellect a little bit more than your emotions. And of course, emotions are great, but sometimes when you're in a crisis or you're in an unpredictable situations, emotions tend to lead you to panic. So that's why asking a what question has been really great for me, because that kind of keeps me more intellectually centered. And so that eliminates the panic. It makes me see the solution a little bit clearer. And then after that, the emotions kick in, but the emotions are now more positive, because once I kind of see, oh, it's not really that vague. Now I see the solution, so once I see the goal to go to, at least I can figure out the way. Then I can figure out the hows and the whys, and but so for me, what is a very important thing when it comes to practicing. And that's what we're actually doing right now, because we were just arranging some stuff, right?
We were arranging some Armenian folk songs, which kind of leads us into our next point, which is some exciting October concerts that are coming up. First of all, the first one is not part of the arranging project that we were working on. This one is different. There's one tonight, which is the concert for my trio, the Bowery Trio. It's going to be online. It's through YouTube Premieres, so it's going to be a pre-recorded video that's premiering as a concert. So we actually did a virtual concert with some of our own solo works, as well as some videos of a couple pieces of us playing from a distance. So we actually recorded the parts with click tracks or with listening to each other, or both, and then I put them together, and they're going to be broadcasting as part of the concert. So that is going to take place tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. The video is airing about 8:15 p.m. Eastern. For all you Texas people, that's 7:15 p.m. Central. And I will post the link to that in the description box of this video. It should be a really fun concert, and there's also a post-concert discussion afterwards on Zoom, where we will be having the composer of one of our works that's premiering for the first time, and he will be there to answer any questions. So if you are a composer, or if you enjoy composing, or if you have questions about it, you should definitely come, because you can ask some really important questions about the composing process and how to make it as a composer, how to study composition. So if you have questions about that, or if you have questions about chamber music in person or virtual, definitely come, because my trio and I will be there, and we'd love to answer your questions. Secondly, on October 24th, I'm not sure of the exact time yet. We will keep you updated, but my mom and I are going to be performing in a concert presented by the Vision Collective. Some of my friends from Juilliard have formed a collective called Vision, which their main goal is to form relationships with refugees, and positive relationships with refugees, and just help bring them joy and education through music, most of the time in the refugee camps all over the world. So we're really excited to be a part of that. If you know my mom and I, if you know my mom's story, she and my mom's side of the family came to the U.S. as refugees from the former Soviet Union, as refugees to the U.S. in the 1990s. So that's really a special cause to us, and we were able to arrange some Armenian folk music for that concert. So that's really exciting, and we'll keep you updated on when exactly that's happening, because we'd love for you to tune in.
And before you go on, if I could throw in a prayer request, guys, because it's interesting. You know, the Lord works in mysterious ways. But as we were arranging these pieces and getting ready to record, those two Armenian, one is a dance, one is a folk song. I received a call from my mom, and she said that my Armenian side of the family, who live in this small area of Azerbaijan, are being their villages are being attacked by military and air raided, and so it was quite disturbing. This is the same conflict that ended up that led us here as refugees. So I just want to ask you guys to please pray for my family, that they're all safe, that this is all resolved, and that innocent people are not dying or being hurt in this. It seems like that war is starting to resume again, and so please send your prayers and positive thoughts to them.
Yes, please do, and we really appreciate it. We will also be sharing some ways to get involved and donate at this concert. So if you have a desire to do that, definitely tune into that. Or if you guys want to know more about that right off the bat, let me know. I might just go ahead and post a link to the Armenia Fund in the description of this video later. And it's basically a fund that helps the people in this area and in other areas of the country as well, with agriculture, schools, construction, anything really that they need help developing. But especially now, they're directing all of the funds that they're receiving towards this cause, to just helping those people in this area out of stock, to just, for medical supplies, food, water, whatever they need. So we will definitely be letting you guys know more about that as time goes on.
And so the third concert, also the UTRGV one.
I forgot. When is that airing?
I think it's mid-October. I think it's October 16th, if I remember correctly. But we will update you guys. We still have a week or so before that. But this was a fun project we worked together on too.
Yeah, we did work together on this, and this is kind of a hodgepodge of lots of different stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be a fun program. So definitely tune in for that. I already know. One of my friends, she saw me post about our recording session, and she was like, please let us know when it's airing, because we're so excited. Sanked said prayers will be sent. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. That's the most important thing. If there's anything that we learn from being musicians, how, and that's always, going back to this fact of how being a musician really teaches you some life skills, because when you're there on stage in the middle of concert, it's a lot like life, it can hit you. And so we, as musicians, we all know that the most important thing in crisis on stage is your attitude. It's the how well can you train yourself to stay positive and that's what, guys, I've learned, that right now the positive thoughts, positive prayers, thinking of happiness and sending these wonderful, positive, happy things, just in spirit and in thought and in your heart. I think that is the most important thing for us to do for anybody in any situation. Yes. So, so what's next? Oh, okay. So did you want to give them a little taste of what we arranged?
Yeah.
Yes. So we wanted to surprise you guys and give you just a tiny bit live performance of one of those Armenian tunes that we've arranged together. And it's written by the Armenian composer, classical composer, one of the earliest Armenian classical composers. His name is Komitas, last name. And, I have this cute story that goes with it. I'm 50% Armenian. So I remember when I started studying violin, which I was 7 years old. My grandpa, we lived together with my grandma and grandpa. So my mom's grandpa, who was Armenian, I would come when I was 7 or 8. He would ask me every time I came back home from music school. He would ask me, "So, are you good enough to play komitas yet?" So my grandpa is in heaven, but I want to tell him, yes, I'm finally good enough to play komitas. So we'll just play a little bit of this. It's called a dance, named after a certain region of Armenia. And, you know, these kind of dances you would always hear at celebrations, at the weddings, at the parties, whenever people get together. You know, first they eat a lot, then they drink, then they start singing, and then in the end they start dancing. And so such a fun music, usually 6/8. It's a very characteristic, excuse me, I don't know why I'm getting, it's a very characteristic time signature, 6/8. And also listen for those augmented seconds that give it that very, very Middle Eastern kind of character.
That's a little teaser.
Yeah, the rest you hopefully tune in to listen to us. So, I wonder how I can mute my phone because I keep getting calls, and it's a local number. So I hope it's not about the clinic that we're doing right after. But anyway, so as you can see, this is very, very familiar sound right now, right? Because I think in the past several years we've heard a lot of Middle Eastern music coming up. I think with even Shakira, her stuff sounds a little bit, even in pop music. So I think you will enjoy it because it's been getting quite a lot of interest lately. And so the second piece that we arranged that, you know, we will play in that concert is a very famous Armenian song about a beautiful girl. And both me and Esther, we heard it growing up, sung by my mom and Esther's grandma. So we really had fun playing it in hopes that you will have fun watching us when it's out.
Yeah, it's a really special song, and just the memories are really special for me. And also, you know, there's a lot of you know, just the tonality. There's a lot of nostalgia, and growing up, I always loved just the sound of Armenian music and Middle Eastern music, and that kind of sound I always have for as long as I can remember. And, you know, I guess it is in my genes, but, you know, it's really special for me to be able to perform this music and to arrange it and to honor my heritage and my culture in this way. So we're really excited, and we hope you can tune in for that, to see it, because it's going to be a really special and unique concert for us. So.
And talking about special and unique, we are doing, which is not very special and unique. We're doing a regular major scale today, as always, and our next is E major. We decided.
So we've just been going around the circle of fifths, kind of. I mean, we started with G major, then did C, so that was a little backwards.
Yeah.
Then we went on to D, then A, and now we're on E major, which is 4 sharps. What?
Yeah. So.
What do you want me to say?
No, go ahead.
Yeah. F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp.
Yes, a lot of sharps.
So it's a little bit difficult because, well, we don't have an open E string. So here the only string that's open is our A. We can't play open C, can't play open G, can't play open D. So there's a lot of shifting in the cello fingerings, and I'll show that to you as well. But I think for violins, E major is a little bit easier because you have the open E.
I think it's like, okay, let's see. For you, A major.
Yeah.
That, or for viola, what A major is for cello and viola, that's what E major is for us. It's a little better. But for us, B major is kind of like what E major is for you. So like that, like it just barely any open strings. We have the same. But the E major for us is a little bit less difficult than for you guys because we do have an open E string.
Yeah.
So we're gonna attempt again 3-octave E major, and Esther's gonna start. I'm gonna join her in thirds, but let's give them our A before if they want to play along.
And feel free to play along. We're just gonna do 2 per bow.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And we're doing it in thirds, so you could either go with her or with me, whichever you prefer.
Yeah. Go with me. No, I'm just kidding.
1, 2, ready, go. So I actually start on 1 on the E, on the C string. So you would normally play with 3 in first position. I start on 1 because you have to play a G sharp. So if you start on 1 on E, that already, if you're in extended position, you already have the first 3 notes right here. And so this scale is definitely not, it's a good warm-up scale, but you do have to be careful because you have a lot of extensions and you're starting already in an extension. So if you're ever, warming up with this scale, make sure to go through very carefully and slowly as to not stress your hand. For me, extensions are pretty doable because I have long fingers, but if you have smaller hands, definitely be careful with this scale and warm up really well before you play it because there's a lot of extensions, especially on the lower strings, so you're like this a lot, which is totally, it's good practice, don't get me wrong, definitely do it, but just be careful not to overdo it. Then I shift back to A, then back another half step for G sharp, or D sharp, shift up for G sharp, then back to C sharp, then 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, our good friend, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, then we go back to 4, 4 on B, 4. So really you're traveling, on the way down it's like 4, 4, 4, 4, you're just going back down. On the way up it feels a little more complicated, but really you're doing the same thing, just forward. So you see all those 4s, 1, 2, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, then 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. A lot of 4s.
Yeah, I can see why you need to warm up
But yeah, so it's a bit of a, it's like a traveling scale, I guess. You travel a lot. You don't stay in one place like C major. Like you can play the whole like 2-octave C major scale without moving positions on the cello, but with E it's a little different. And you can experiment with different fingerings. You could start onto, there's so many different ways. This is just the fingering that I like the best, and we will post, as we did last week in our video, we'll post links to the scale fingerings that we used today, and I might post an alternate fingering as well if I can find it. But yeah, so that's basically it. And just a reminder from last week, as far as tone, just, keep a nice concentrated weight and tone on the lower strings. And as you move up, because this scale spans all the way from C string to the A string, as you move up, remember to use more bow and lighten your right hand and get closer to the bridge to get a nice light sound that's not scratchy.
That was great.
Awesome.
Okay, yes. So guys, I have a couple of fingerings, different fingerings for E major too, but they have to do mostly with how you started. So as if you've noticed, when we played with Esther, I started in the first position, but I ended in the third. I did it on purpose because you can do both. Of course, normally in my studio, when you're performing a scale, if you picked a certain way to start a scale, you're supposed to end in the same position. So if you would like to start in the first position, then you're just going to go, as always, usually when we start scales, three octave scales in the first position, usually the first shift is somewhere on A string, most likely into the third position, most likely to the first finger. And that's what happens here. If you would like to start it in the first position, you will start. However, after that, the fingerings are the same, whether you start in the first or the third position. So now if you start obviously in the third position, then you save yourself that shift, right? So after that, you're going to keep going. And here's the important part. You're going to play third finger on C sharp and then shift to the first finger. One more shift to the A, and that's it. And then you go back the same, 4/4 from E to D sharp. Now we're going to do from 1 to 3 to G sharp. And this is my favorite part. And we're going to go down all the way to 4, and that brings us back to the third position on D sharp. So if you prefer to start in the third position, then you're just going to keep going down all the way in the third position to the E on G string. But if you would like to go back to the first position after E, D sharp, this is where you go back. And that's it. I want to add a couple of things because I did post a scale from my personal, scale packet. And if you've looked at it, you might have noticed there are a few extra notes that are added. And this is very common in scales, that very often we add just a couple of notes at the beginning and at the end to round it up so that it's easily divided into fours. Because if you've seen my maybe G major tutorial, I also have an acceleration challenge on our channel. And so what I like to do, I like to start playing 4, then 8, then 12 and so forth, 16, 24, 32. And so considering the fact that usually in music our scales are divided into some kind of regular meters and beats, and let's, I mean, if we're honest, to be honest, like quadruplets are probably more common than triplets most of the time, especially when we're, playing something scalar. I've noticed that. So therefore, kind of arranging the scale with these a few extra notes at the beginning, at the end, into a quadruple kind of pattern that divides into quadruplets easily. That's kind of a tradition that's been going on for quite a long time. So in case if you were wondering why there are some added notes at the beginning of the A major, at the end, that's why. Now with Esther, when we play together in thirds, we don't add the notes because otherwise it clashes really badly at the top. So when, of course, if you're playing with someone else and you want to do that pretty third pattern, you don't need to add those. But usually my students, that's how they're required to perform the scales from my packet that have a few of the added notes only for 3-octave scales, because once you get to 4-octave scale, since it's 4 octaves, it very easily divides into fourths, so we don't have to worry about that. So here it is. Let's do again one more time, recap the fingerings, and I will post both of those finger patterns sometime later under this video in comments, or no, in description box. I always get those confused. So here it is. Important rule that I was brought up, my teachers always insisted on that, so that's what I did, and I asked my students to do the same, just on the scales. When it comes to real music, of course, the rules are meant to be broken, right? Like Picasso said, an artist learns the rules so he can break them later, right? But on scales, usually it's customary to play open strings on the way up if you use the first position in the scale. Open strings on the way up, and then fourth fingers on the way down. So that's why I played open A, for example, and then on the way up, and then on the way down I played fourth finger. One of the last thing that I wanted to share with you is kind of a little cheat, key signature memorization cheat that might be helpful. And if you're a teacher, you might already know this, but I kind of discovered it randomly, and I've been using it with my beginners for a long time. Right now, I don't have any beginners, but so if you or your students are struggling to memorize some of the key signatures, for a violinist, it works really well because since the key signatures progress in fifths, our lowest string is G, which is G major has 1 sharp, right? When you go to the next, if you want to find out what's the next scale that has 2 sharps, you just go to the next string, and that's a D. D major has 2 sharps. So guess what? The next scale is that has 3 sharps, A major, and then finally the one that we played today, E major, has 4 sharps. So I know it's just 4 scales, but I think for beginners sometimes it can be so daunting trying to memorize and understand why these scales even have accidentals. So, and considering that most of the time we start beginners with sharps, it works really, really well. So let me know if I would love to hear in comments if you guys knew about this hack or if you didn't and if it's helpful. So Esther, you want to come back?
Yes, I'm bringing caramel corn.
Oh wow!
Because
so
it's fall and
yes.
it's good.
I love that. That's actually really good
It's
stuff.
really yummy. We got it at Walmart. It's from this brand called Just Poppin'.
Yeah.
And it's called Crazy Caramel. It's really good.
Highly recommend. Do we have any questions?
Nope.
Okay.
We don't have any questions
So
yet. I think I might have forgotten to play through the scale a second time with you guys after the thirds, but
no worries. They can rewatch it.
I think I got caught up in explaining the fingerings, but
which is good. You did a good job.
They are a little complicated, so
I didn't realize that. And since the fourth finger, you end up playing all these sharp notes, right? Is that why you keep traveling, like you were saying?
Yeah. So it's like if you start on E, you're playing the G sharp with 4, but then when you go back and you play A, B, C sharp, D, E, F, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, G sharp, A, B. So it kind of changes, but it does help with the traveling and thinking about it, landing your 4 on those notes. It kind of helps with the mental process of learning the scale.
Yeah, E major I found extremely useful for my students. When I start in college, when I start freshman. We usually start with solo Bach, and when they start anyone on solo Bach, if they've never played solo Bach, partitas and sonatas for violin, I always go to the very last 2 movements in the book. There's bourrée and jig, which are very nice. It's great music, but it's also quite playable. However, the only thing that is really uncomfortable about that whole partita is the key of E major. And that's when I found it's very useful for my students to actually practice E major. Because what happens, especially, you end up with a high 3, even in the first position, even if they don't shift. What happens, they usually, if you haven't played a lot of various finger patterns, you're so used to having a half step here. What happens, I noticed that by extending the 3 up, what happens, the whole hand starts traveling, and so the whole intonation starts going super sharp, and they don't realize it. But it gets even worse if you end up shifting to the third position, because now they don't realize that they're first, even though the whole system is in the same place in third position, but the first finger is supposed to be half a step higher than normal. So because usually if you have a student who is not familiar with E major, and what happens, they don't realize it, and the hand starts itching forward because it starts looking for this pattern instead of this one. And so that's why E major has been a lifesaver for me and my students, especially at the beginning, if they were playing this particular partita. The same, with the prelude. Sorry, Esther, I didn't mean to. It's occupational hazard, being a string teacher. Yes, but all of those patterns, it seems like it would be such a friendly key, when you are playing in E major, we have an open E string, but it's not, it's a really mean key for violinists too, because it kind of mimics the patterns, but not quite. It's just ever so slightly higher, almost in every position, on the third and the first finger in the first position. And so that really wreaks havoc with the players if they are not listening and they're just trying to play the patterns. And so I think we did a good deed today going over E major. What are there any like super common things for cello that are written in E major?
We have E minor, but
what about Bach solo partitas? You don't have anything in E major, right?
No, we have E flat major, but not an E. We don't have an E major suite. They're suites though.
So yeah, sorry, I keep always calling them partitas, but it's the same thing. Both. It's just a different.
Basically. But I guess maybe.
I mean, the genre of suite and partita is just a different name, but they represent the same thing. It's basically dances. Yeah. But of course, cello suites are more regular. Yours are pretty regular. Our partitas are all over the place.
So so I'm trying to think if we have anything that's really. I'm sure there's something that I'm like blanking on, but I'm not thinking of any like really common rep that we have in E major. I'm sure I'll think of something later. There's definitely some like excerpts and things I think that are in E major, like symphonic works, but E major is a bit of an awkward key for us, so I don't think there's a lot of solo stuff written in that key, which is interesting, and I never really thought about it before,
Yeah.
but there's not a ton of stuff.
Well, that's good. So we hope this was helpful to you guys, and
Yeah.
thank you so much for
Claudia
joining.
said, I really enjoyed this, very informative.
Oh, good. Thank you so much, Claudia. I really appreciate it. We really, I honestly, I thought we weren't going to have this live today because when we received that news about my family, and my first reaction was to just kind of hide and sit and pray and maybe get depressed a little bit. But then, I realized that that's when it's important to be positive. And so I'm so glad that you guys showed up. It's very fun. It's been very fun for us to continue to do this. And next couple of weeks, things will be a little bit different.
Oh, yeah. So I'll be out of town for the next 2 Saturdays. And I will not have my cello with me. I'll still be teaching and doing Zoom and stuff, but just with a piano instead of a cello. So I will have a little electric keyboard to help us out.
Yeah.
But most of what I'm going to be doing for the cello stuff for the next 2 weeks is going to be mostly explaining and visual things, and I will be tuning in over Zoom. So we'll still do the Zoom to YouTube thing, but I'll just be on a separate screen. And I think I might screen share a couple things so you guys can see, but we'll see how it goes. So it'll be a little different, but thankfully, since this is the Zoom age, we have everything online. Me leaving doesn't have to necessarily interrupt our normal broadcast. So
yeah, well, thank you guys again. We're so happy that you tuned in, and feel free to post once the live is posted, once it's processed. You can, I used to think you can't add comments, but you can after it's over. So feel free to ask us anything and let us know what else you would like to discuss in our next live. We always have plenty of topics, but we would love to hear from you.
Yes, and don't forget that it's October, so enjoy the fall. If you celebrate Halloween, enjoy the spookiness. Get some popcorn.
Yes.
Get some pumpkin spice.
Yeah, I forgot my cup somewhere. I couldn't find it. I made myself
like sugar and scream or something.
Yeah, and I couldn't find my cup. This is partially why we ended up starting a little late, because I was running around trying to look for my cup, but I never found it.
But yeah, and even if you don't celebrate Halloween, just enjoying fall things like pumpkins and caramel corn. I just really like this caramel corn. I promise this is not an ad. I just really like it.
Yeah.
We're not sponsored by this company, but maybe they'll
sponsor. I wish.
Maybe they'll find us.
Yeah.
And sponsor me and send me giant boxes of popcorn. I would be so happy.
I wouldn't, but it's okay. I try to stay away from it. But you know what? All of that is inspiration, and I think it's important to remember that musician is not just about practicing. The most important thing, that the reason we practice is so that when we're inspired by the beauty of music, we can actually share that inspirations with others. So that's why we practice. And even though technique is so very important, but we have to remember technique is only a tool for expressing what is really the most important thing about music. It's sharing your feelings through it. Music is a language of feelings.
That's what one of my teachers told me, Carter Enyart. I studied with him in high school and through a few years in college. Well, just a couple, I guess, because then there's this whole complicated thing where he retired, and then we had a new teacher, and then we had an official teacher. So I had a lot of teachers in undergrad.
And they were all great.
Yeah, they were all great. But I was really fortunate to be able to study with Carter also in high school. And one of the quotes that he taught me was that, technique is what we practice so that we don't inhibit ourselves when we're trying to express ourselves musically. And that's a roundabout way of describing. The quote was a lot more eloquent, but basically it's what you're saying. Like, the reason we practice technique isn't so we can be absolutely perfect, but it's so that we can be agile enough and skilled enough that we know exactly how to make the sounds that we want and to make the music sound the way we feel, so that ultimately when you perform, someone doesn't say, oh, wow, they have really great technique. And I mean, that's a good compliment in itself, but you don't really want that to be the first thing that they think of. you want them to enjoy the music, you know. And so having good technique isn't a bad thing, but it is merely a tool and a gateway to the things that actually matter, which is, you know, bringing that musical product.
It's a necessity, but that's what it is. But for a higher goal, right?
It's like if you know, different skills are like that too. Like if you're doing like if you're building a website and you need to like input some code, like the person probably that looks at your website, unless they're a seasoned computer scientist, they're not going to be like, wow, that's some really great coding. They're going to look at the website and they're going to be like, wow, this is like really pretty. Like that's what I would think. Like my brother maybe would think different because he is like a computer person. But like for someone like me who doesn't really understand all the science of computers, like I don't always realize how much work actually goes into the site behind the scenes. And I think, you know, with our audiences, that's one of the magical things about music is they don't really see all of that work you put in, but in the end, everything we do comes together to make this finished product that is, you know, it moves people.
It's inspiring. That's what we want. We want to be inspired so we can inspire our audiences.
I did a masterclass thing with one of the timpanists in the Met Orchestra, Jason Haheim, and he said, music is putting waves in the air to make people feel things or something like that.
That's true. That's so
true. You're just really like, you're putting sound waves into the air that make people feel things. And that's a very simple and true explanation of what we do.
And it's quite amazing to think. It's almost like a miracle, you know?
It is magical because you're like, how can like a frequency make me feel a certain way? But even like, there's so many studies, like even with plants, like if you play positive things, positive music, joyful music for a plant, it will grow better. And if you like play something dark or depressing or maybe like negative, the plant won't grow as well because those frequencies, even when we speak, it's kind of musical. Like we have phrasing, we pause, we start, we have different pitches as we speak, different timbres. And that's actually a really interesting experiment that I've studied a little bit, where they like put negative self-talk on one plant and positive self-talk on another plant, and the positive plant grew really well and the negative plant was like all shriveled up and gross. Isn't that weird? It's like it's because like it's the way you say maybe it's the way you say things and the intention you have, and something about those sound waves that we know is negative. I don't know, it's really interesting.
Well, it goes back to that age-old question, you know, in music theory. Are we conditioned to think that minor things are sad and major things make us feel happy, or is it true? You know, and maybe we could talk about it next time. Let's do that. How about that topic for next time? We would love to hear from you guys. What do you think about the concept of major and minor? And do you think that it's like chicken or the egg? What came first? Did we really first discover that minor makes us feel sad and major makes us feel happy, and that's why we started using it in a certain way? Or did the composers just kind of happen to use minors for sad things, and then that kind of conditioned us more to think of minor as a sad and major? I would love to have this discussion with you guys. Would love to see. I kind of have my own opinion of that I can share with you. Not scientific, just what I feel, and you probably do too. But it's a really fun discussion to have. So hopefully next time you will be joining us via the waves. Speaking of the waves,
musical chicken and egg.
Yes. All right. Well, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful fall Saturday. The weather is very cool. Go get some caldo and tamales and get inspired. Look at some pumpkins and beautiful colors. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you guys. See you next week virtually.
Yeah.
Well, extra virtually.
Extra virtually.
Bye.
Bye.